This is the hot seat where truth is tested and the testimony of every witness is questioned. And on Thursday, it was Cedrick Nkabinde, former Chief of Staff to Minister on leave of absence Senzo Mchunu, who felt the heat. As Parliament's ad hoc committee probed allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in the criminal justice system, Nkabinde's charm soon faded when he faced blistering questions from lawmakers. And the more he attempted to extinguish the blaze, it seemed he simply fanned the flames. Hello and welcome to this week's wrap of proceedings before Parliament's quest to get to the bottom of claims of the capture of South Africa's criminal justice system. My name is Zoleka Qodashe. Join me as we delve into alleged truths and mistruths and how one man's credibility, the minister's right-hand man, crumbled under Parliament's spotlight. Parliament's ad hoc committee had barely scratched the surface when former Chief of Staff Cedrick Nkabinde made this shocking admission.
Chief of Staff, is this affidavit your affidavit?
Yes, it's correct.
Do you confirm everything that is in this affidavit?
It's correct.
Did you have your gadgets when you were writing this affidavit?
No, dates I was thumb-sucking.
So we are being given a thumb-sucked information here in front of the nation and we must accept that.
Nkabinde attempted to relay some of the events of 2024 when he was asked by Chief Evidence Leader Advocate Norman Arnser about his relationship with controversial Northwest businessman Mkhwanazi. Nkabinde joined the police ministry in August last year after he was handpicked by Minister Senzo Mchunu, who had been appointed to head the department the month before. The pair had their work cut out for them, as two major events would need their most urgent attention shortly after strapping their boots: the Lusiki massacre and the dozens of artisanal miners trapped in Stilfontein in the northwest.
The minister, through me, who was facilitating, the minister gave me the number of Mkhwanazi to facilitate.
Is that the only time that you made contact with Mr. Mkhwanazi, was when the minister gave you his number and you had to contact him about these meetings?
I recall some of other messages from Mkhwanazi. He do send some messages. The one I recall, it's a message about Khan. What I can describe this character, Chair, is a person who like to break news. That's what I can describe him. Is a person who will tell a story maybe before you know it. Break news. What is on the news, he forwarded it to everyone he knows. So I cannot deny that there are some stupid messages he will then send, not even respond to them.
Nkabinde was tasked with facilitating a meeting with Mkhwanazi and the minister and what he called other comrades. The meeting was necessitated by the urgent humanitarian crisis that was developing beneath the surface of a northwest mine, the same province where Mkhwanazi lives. According to Nkabinde, this was the first time he was in possession of the controversial figure's contact details for a meeting around October or November last year. But this raised eyebrows for one member of Parliament.
What precipitates a confusion, Chair, here is that Mr. Nkabinde says in his statement he was called by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi in September 2024. General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was asking him about Mkhwanazi, and he says in his reply he said to General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, "I know Mr. Mkhwanazi as a close," and well, he's now saying he didn't say he's a close associate, but he says he said to General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, "I know Mr. Mkhwanazi as a person who is close to the minister," and that was in September. Again, he says he did not know Mkhwanazi up until he was instructed by the minister to facilitate a meeting around October and November. Now, a call from General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was made before the meeting for which he was instructed to facilitate. So that's where the confusion is. I think there's a lot of contradiction that the witness is making.
During his evidence before Parliament's same body in October, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi testified that he had reached out to Nkabinde in September last year in an attempt to verify Mkhwazi's number after Mkhwazi reached out to him, alerting him to a campaign to have him answer to defeating the ends of justice charges. It was Nkabinde who confirmed Mkhwazi's details about a month or two before the date he has now offered to Parliament as the first time he had the alleged attempted murder survivor's details. This a crucial piece of evidence that called all his testimony into question.
If what we're being told here is anything to go by, it means the whole statement is misleading. So the committee can't rely on a misleading statement. And two, even if the statement was written by the evidence leader, they gave you to read the statement. They made you to confirm the content of the statement. And you signed the statement, unless you are telling us that you signed it ad duress. If you are saying to us they made you to sign forcefully, then we can understand. But if they made you to read the statement and allowed you to sign it before the statement was commissioned, then it means the problem is with you. I think, Chair, the only option we have here, because we can't rely on a misleading statement. This is a misleading statement because he says he is not sure of the dates that he has written here. And the statement is reflective of dates from the first to the last paragraph. So there is no need for us to have this interview unless we are saying we have appetite of engaging in a talk show.
But Nkabinde soon changed his tune, altering the chronological events of the previous year.
I'm saying, guided by the call of General Mkhwanazi, that he's asking me if I know Mkhwazi. That will be after I got the number from the minister, and that will be after the meeting of Mkhwazi and the minister, because there was no way I would have a number to confirm to Mkhwanazi without me having his number during of that meeting facilitation.
But MPs were not having it.
But you know, colleagues, a man sits in front of you and say, I was thumb sucking this affidavit. He used that word. And then you still, if you take yourself serious, want to go on with an affidavit of being thumb sucked. He said it. I've thumb sucked this thing. October, November, and also, Chair, I want to put it on record, he's lying. October, November, it's a correct date because that minister went to the mine on the 14th of November. Not in July. On the 14th of November. And then now he says, no, October, November, he's caught in a lie. He changes to be prior, the call of Mkhwanazi. It's a lie. It's perjury, it's a lie. He needs to be arrested for lying to Parliament, lying under oath.
And it was the failure to honor his oath,
So help me God,
that forced MPs to send him packing.
Mr. Nkabinde, you're really wasting our time. I want to ask you, are you the only person in that department that has access to dates? Does the minister not have a PA? No other support staff you could have verified these dates with? That's the one thing. Secondly, you've given us a sworn statement. You have sworn this morning. You now come and you say you have thumb-sucked dates. You have a guided statement, and your dates are based on what previous witnesses have said. Are we really meant to probe further on a statement that is not truthful, on a statement that won't guide us to a means to an end? Because that's why we're here. We need to connect the dots. And when you're sitting there telling us, I don't know, it could have been 2 months prior, it could have been 2 months earlier, that is not even close. Are we meant to sit here today and even probe you with as to when things happened when you've given us a written statement? I don't think we should continue with you today.
But Nkabinde was the subject of a search and seizure on his property in October this year, where his laptop and cell phone were taken. He's attributed his performance before the fact-finding body to this operation.
He has provided evidence on two platforms. One is an affidavit which is written. So you've already attested on it, and there's a commissioner's signature, as I would presume, that says anything which is written on that affidavit is the truth and nothing but the truth. Parliamentarians relied on it when they were going through and preparing for this day. So if you're going to say something which is contrary to that, that means you've already perjured yourself. When it comes to viva voce evidence that he was giving today, he may have a point, he may have a defense there. In fact, he's going to say, when I was placed under oath and providing my evidence, I spoke the truth. I did not wait up until my evidence was done and dusted, and only maybe 2 or 3 days later came and tried to amend or give different dates. I explained it on that day, and which is why the testimony did not go through, or I wasn't able to finish my testimony. So he may have a defense there. So it would depend on the prosecution, which one do they want to rely on. Are they going to say we are sticking to what you've written down, or we are going to go by the viva voce evidence that you gave earlier? But if it's viva voce, he may have a defense to say, actually, I spoke the truth. I came to Parliament and I told them these are deficiencies that are there, and I did not mislead or try to provide certain dates which were incorrect. Yes, it may have been raised by a member of Parliament when they were quizzing me, but in terms of answering the question most truthfully, as I promised to do when we started the proceedings, that's exactly what I did.
In terms of Section 17, subsection 2 of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, a person who willfully furnishes the House or Committee of Parliament with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offence. He's liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years, and some parties want him to face the music. But they've denied applying double standards to the witnesses who've appeared before the committee.
When he started his statement, right, we even adjourned for a good 3 or 4 hours because he came with a statement that was from the commission. So you cannot say that as the EFF we have not been fair, number one. Number two, it only came to light during Becky Tele's statement that Lieutenant General gave incorrect information. The President, Commander-in-Chief was the first one to stand up and say there must be apology, he must come back here and he has to amend the statement. So when he comes back, we will make a decision on whether we also need to go and open a case. Remember, the Chief of Staff, straight out, he said that he was thumb-sucking. We didn't get the same thing from the other witnesses.
Beyond the affidavit and disputed dates lie even bigger questions for Parliament. Questions about Nkabinde's history, what qualifications he brings to one of the most sensitive offices in the government, and how he allegedly came to enjoy the trust of 2 of the most senior figures in the country's policing environment, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. We'll unpack this and more after the break. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us as we begin to piece together the life and times of Cedrick Nkabinde and how he rose to become Mkhunu's right-hand man in the police ministry. Cedrick Nkabinde's service in the SAPS can be tracked as far back as 2004, where he worked as a detective constable. Nkabinde later joined the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, or IPID, as a captain in 2009, moving through the ranks until he was promoted to Assistant Director in 2012. It was during his time at IPID that a case involving Mchunu and the death of a member of his security personnel would confront him.
Minister Mchunu had complained. If you look at the second page of his letter of complaint, he said, it's unnumbered, unfortunately. Nhlanhla was subsequently removed, and the case was taken over by the then Hawks. Apparently, the Hawks got the same mission where I was viewed as a suspect.
Yes, that was basically his concerns, that his staff member made a case. The progress is very slow. There are several clues for police to follow to the arrest of perpetrators, but they are not interested to do that. In fact, they now view him as a suspect. So he did not hire, but even though I was not there, but when I look through the documentations, he did not hire a private investigator as a suspect. He hired a private investigator as a person who's got an interest in the case with a slow progress in the investigation.
The Director for Public Prosecutions in KwaZulu-Natal declined to prosecute in that matter, and it was Nkabinde who drafted a report adding to the lack of reasonable prospects of success in the matter. It was also during his time at IPID that Nkabinde would be acquainted with Mkhwanazi, but the chief of the SAPS in KZN says they are not friends. However, Nkabinde tells a different tale.
A second example, just to show how close we are. General Mkhwanazi wanted to build a house in his homestead at Impendle, KZN. He came to me to help him to design that house. We designed that house for him. So a private home with the security features, you can only design that thing with a person very close to you. And over and above that, the architecture to draw a design and a plan of that house, I'm the one who recommended. He used my architect to design that house. So I'm trying to show that, and there's a person who come often to my house, knows my family. I go to his house, I know his family. He come and visit me in my house, I go, we eat in one plate together. So it's a very close. There are things me and him, we go to the grave with. The way we are so close. Things that when he was doing a media briefing, when he was testifying in the Nhlanhla Commission, when he testified here, he never mentioned it himself. So we are very close.
It was during this alleged tight-knit friendship that Mkhwanazi assisted Nkabinde in finding employment after his untimely departure from IPID in 2018, after he submitted a report to then Minister Begicele, in which he implicated former IPID head Robert McBride.
Which he got very upset with the content where the report was implicating him in particular and Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. Then in that report, Mr. McBride got so upset with me and he suspended me immediately because of that disclosure which I made to the minister. Then in September 2018, it was going to be my departmental hearing for what I was suspended for. Then during that time on my hearing, it was 19 September 2018. Before my departmental hearing commenced, Mr. McBride arrived in the venue. It was in Sentin. He arrived at the venue, which it was a shock to all of us that what McBride is doing in the hearing, because he's the executive director.
That's what friends are for, Nkabinde told the ad hoc committee as he continued relaying stories of his alleged relationship with the police commissioner. The pair travelled to Mbangeni in what Nkabinde described as one of their boys' trips they undertook to see the minister. The purpose of the visit, however, is disputed.
I don't know if it's the norm, and I'll be honest, I did ask a few ministers and I said to them, do the provincial commissioners in your provinces just come and see you because you're a high-profile person? And that was not the answer was in the negative. So my question, General, is why did you go there, knowing, as you said to us, that Mr. Nkabinde, I'm not sure the word that you used, something like that he was a shady fellow, and you told Minister Mchunu at that meeting. So what was the purpose of the meeting? What was it to discuss? And then you then said to Minister Mchunu, this is not a good guy.
No, let me correct that, Honorable Member. The last part you're talking about was to the acting Minister Khatshaliya, not Mr. Mchunu. Was a recent meeting that was held in Pretoria at the Pretoria College. In the presence in that meeting was the acting Minister Khatshaliya, the National Commission, and the 2 deputies, and myself. That's where we discussed that. The original meeting of Minister Mchunu, at the time he was not in the police. He was not a minister in the police. I said I was close to Mr. Nkabinde. I might not explain to where did we go first before we passed at the minister's house. But we eventually passed the minister's house where he said, no, he wants to go and see the minister. And I thought there was something strategic, maybe some of the serious things I want to talk about. But we ended up, the 3 of us, just sitting together and talking general until we left. So I thought it was just a meet and greet and also just give assurance that he knows the minister. Yes, on hindsight, I now realize perhaps it might have been him trying to impress the minister that he's close to me, that the minister shouldn't worry about whatever they think he might need to be assisted on because I have this relationship with me. I suspect maybe that could be the reason. But there was nothing wrong on what we've done. I had met many other people. Some of them might not necessarily be in the executive position in the past, but through meeting through someone else, let me meet so-and-so, they meet so-and-so. Some members here in this portfolio committee, I met them in that fashion. When the senior officer wants to see you, or the member of government, or the leader in society that wants to talk to you, I meet with them. Some of them come to my office, some of them I meet them wherever we engage with. I don't discriminate against anyone. Taxi people, bosses, I meet with them.
We've seen you meet with them, General. But General, the reason I'm asking this is that, did you know at that point that he was a person of interest in the matter that you were talking to us about?
I said when I started, honorable members, that when I met the minister, he was not in the police, so he had no business with the police. He was a good man dealing with water, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. So there was no relationship with the police at all. Nkabinde was unemployed, was not even working at the office of the minister.
But when Nkabinde received an unexpected call to become Mchunu's chief of staff, Mkhwanazi told Parliament that the man selected for the job was unaware of the functions of the role, leading to some questioning his qualifications.
Does the BTEC equate to the NQF level 8?
No, it's 7. But if you have a diploma or diplomas, then it...
Minister Susquat, is it not NQF level 8? Then if you have anything else, but for the door to be opened, it has to be a NQF level 8.
For sure. Let me see what happened. But there are specifications. But those specifications, I know that if you have other things, it happens that way.
But Nkabinde insists he is adequately qualified, explaining that he sailed through the recruitment process in which there would be no interviews, and contradicted the minister's assertion that there was a panel in which several candidates were interviewed. This ease in the process for Nkabinde is despite his claims that he did not regularly have engagements with the minister, although unashamedly keeping his number during his time at IPID.
Yes, I'm saying I was surprised that because me and him, we never talk anything of employment, even when he was in the previous portfolios. Yeah. I never seek even any employment from him.
Now,
I was surprised.
I would think that you would agree that the reason why, in terms of the executive handbook of ministers, I think it was previously referred to as the ministerial handbook, that the appointments of a post, especially at this level, chief of staff, is really left to a minister's discretion. It's because inherent in that position is a trust relationship between the relevant minister and the chief of staff. You're the head of that office. You will know everything that happens in that office. You'll know all the movements of the relevant minister and so on.
That's correct, Chair.
So wouldn't it have been more than a surprise that a newly appointed minister to a big, important portfolio, if not the most important, given the state of things in our country, approaches you to apply for the job? Did you ask him why?
No, I never asked him why. I avail myself, and by the fact that I qualify. And on that as well, how I left public sector, it was not in a pleasant moment. It was because of the fight I had with Mr. McBride. Yes. So this was an opportunity to go back to my passion as a public servant. Okay. And I'm still young for McBride and Paul O'Sullivan to destroy my career. So I just welcome it in that perspective as well.
It's alleged that it's during his time in the office of the minister that there was a flow of suspicious communication. Evidence leader, Advocate Norman Arnser, pointed to messages between Mkhwanazi and a Mr. Dlamini. Nkabinde says he is not aware of who the second participant is, but recalls the name being that of Vusumuzi Nhlanhla during the Commission of Inquiry investigating allegations of criminal infiltration in Pretoria, but claims to know nothing of the messages despite being copied in the chain of exchanges.
And then in the record that you have now, there is the use or the uses of the words Senzo Chief and Chief of Staff respectively. Is that correct?
Yes, I can see them, Chair.
And then when you have said that when it is written Senzo Chief, it does not mean you because you are the Chief of Staff.
That's correct, Chair.
And then in the second instance where the words Chief of Staff are used, does that refer to you?
I'm not sure, Chair, because there are so many Chief of Staff in South Africa. I'm not sure if this was me.
With Nkabinde being shown the door, the code he would be key to unlocking remains closed, at least for now, and the questions about whether there was an external party influencing the minister's directive for the disbandment of the political killings task team remains unanswered.
My initial response from the time I saw the letter was just shocked and surprised that how can a minister write such a serious letter that is going to have so much implications in the organization. And more concern is that I had already met the minister, and I wouldn't want the executive authority to do things that is against the law. And so I have a responsibility to bring to his attention. But at the time I felt it is important to use a shortcut because I got to meet the minister before he became the Minister of Police through Mr. Nkabinde. I know Mr. Nkabinde is the office of the minister. He had asked me what Chief of Staff does. So upon seeing this letter, he was the first person I called, because I believe that there cannot be any document going to the minister for signature without his knowledge. So I called him. I said, Nkabinde, the minister signed a letter that says the following. Are you aware of this letter? And his response was, yes, I am aware of the letter. But according to him, the letter was going back and forth by whoever between the minister, whoever was drafting the letter and the minister. That made me believe that the minister is not the author. Someone else prepared this letter for the minister, and the minister signed.
And now, with the criminal charges laid against Nkabinde, the baton has now been passed to the very criminal justice system that has been called into question. And key in that ecosystem is the National Prosecuting Authority. When we return, we look at the evidence of the person who's been at the helm of the NPA for the last 6 years, Advocate Shamila Batoy, and how she fared before the inquisitorial body. Stay with us. From freshly laid charges to ones already on the court roll, the workings of the criminal justice system are playing out for all to see and continue to be the subject of scrutiny at Parliament's ad hoc committee. And at the heart of this ecosystem is the National Prosecuting Authority, whose outgoing head, Advocate Shamila Batoy, faced a barrage of questions from MPs. Importantly, what forms the basis for the arrest of crime intelligence boss Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo?
Batoy's testimony follows that of Advocate Andrea Johnson, head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, or IDAC, a unit in the NPA. And as the person at the helm of the prosecuting authority, Batoy was not spared from lawmakers' concern over Khumalo's arrest.
Khumalo was arrested by IDAC for an HR matter. Have you ever done a supervision of that case?
In that matter, as I explained, well, in all matters, particularly, well, let's deal with IDAC matters, because it relates to an IDAC matter. I get very, very high-level reports, and verbally, because of leakage of information, the ID gives me very high-level reports, verbally, generally. In this particular case, she informed me about the impending arrest of the head of crime intelligence. I said to her, Andrea, are you sure this is a watertight case? Because arresting the head of crime intelligence is not something one takes lightly. There must be a watertight case, and she explained to me that it was part of a much bigger case strategy. This was one case that's part of a much bigger case strategy, and that the case was solid. But again, I urge, if anyone feels aggrieved by that decision, to bring a review process. And I assure the people of this country that I will look at any case, whether it's Phala Phala or this matter, objectively, and decide whether the correct decision was taken.
Section 27 of the NPA Act stipulates that if any person has reasonable grounds to suspect that a specified offence has been or is being committed, or that an attempt has been or is being made to commit such an offence, he or she may report the matter to the head of an investigating directorate by means of an affidavit or affirmed declaration. And this is what National Coloured Congress member Fadil Adams did in November last year, but lawmakers are questioning the procedure adopted in the case.
An adult male from Parliament goes to IDEC and alleges that they have got an intelligence information which they picked up from the doorstep, but does not bring that information, but bring the word of mouth that I picked up this, and then I'm going to do an affidavit with you explaining it. Then that informs the basis of the arrest of General Khumalo. So, was it supposed to happen like that, or how does it naturally become procedurally correct?
So, through you, Chair, to Honourable Member, the IDAC has certain processes which Andrea Johnson explained to this House. I'm not involved in those processes. But of course, the start of the process was the referral by one of the honourable members of this House. But after that, I'm not aware of the precise nature of those processes, except that I do know there's a preliminary investigation and there's potentially an investigation that will be authorized. But the IDAC has its internal processes to assess the evidence at each stage.
The legality of the referral was also questioned by MPs.
Can I come to IDEC to lay a complaint against whoever and allege that I've got in possession, I am in possession of classified information, intelligence information, and I don't have a clearance certificate to handle classified intelligence information? Will IDEC be legally in correct parameters to attend to such a case?
IDAC's mandate is to investigate crime. And in my view, if IDAC gets evidence of criminality, they have an obligation to investigate it. The other side of it is the legality, etc., can be disputed at a later stage. But I would think that IDAC's mandate requires it to investigate cases as such.
But Batoy is adamant that the arrest was above board.
That is a very, very dangerous allegation to make, that a law enforcement agency that is mandated to deal with corruption and other related offenses would effect an arrest in order to protect drug cartels. As I answered earlier, I have no doubt that the IDAC and the ID would never, Advocate Johnson would never be motivated.
However, MPs appeared dissatisfied with Batoy's responses, particularly in relation to the powers of the NDPP. Batoy testified that she only had powers to review in terms of Section 177, subsection 3D of the Constitution, which empowers her to review a decision to prosecute or not to prosecute. But lawmakers believe they extend to much more than that.
I made a plea, and I even said to you, even if I meet you in town, in the toilet, everywhere, I will request you to resign, because in my understanding, you are not fit for this position. Now, Section 34 of the NPA says the NDPP may direct a DPP to submit a report to him regarding a specific activity relating to his or her powers, duties, and functions. That is the first section that gives you huge powers to run the institution holistically. Section 22 says the NDPP may direct a DPP to submit a report in respect of any case, matter, prosecution. Now, when it says prosecution, it gives you a responsibility to summon a report, even if the prosecution is still underway, to say, NDPP, come to my office or give me a report about this matter and advise or overturn, as you said that you can overturn the decision of the NDPP. But in many instances, you refer a responsibility to the DPP and says, no, it falls in his competency and you have no statutory responsibility.
The chief spy's arrest raised questions of oversight of the investigating directorates.
So there's no mechanism currently, independent third-party mechanism to ensure accountability and oversight. It's still in-house.
Until those regulations are promulgated, yes, it is currently the Public Service Act and regulations will apply.
And the criticism which you will understand is that this is not a satisfactory state of affairs.
I want to agree. I mean, in a constitutional democracy, you know, when an institution like the IDAC has the powers that it has, none of us as citizens want to be on the wrong side where somebody, IDAC, acts improperly or not in terms of their mandate, and you know, and we as citizens are affected by that. So I agree that the mechanism needs to be promulgated as fast as possible, put into operation rather, as fast as possible.
Khumalo's arrest was not the only thing that Batoy was called to account for. She was also asked about comments she made on the 5th of June, just a month before Mkhwanazi brought the nation to a standstill.
I can say that I have not had interference from any members of the executive whilst I have been the national director. But what I do want to say is that there are other issues that I can't really speak about that actually makes me worry sometimes, that the NPA is actually being infiltrated by people that do not have the rule of law at heart. And that, for me, as the national director, is hugely concerning. I can't speak a lot about this, but I am concerned about the attacks on the NPA, on the national director, and the reasons for this. And I can't speak too much because it's difficult, but it's something that I am going to take up very, very seriously.
With?
With the executive.
The president, let's be clear.
We need to actually understand exactly what is going on and why it is sometimes so difficult to actually do this job, because you have all the challenges of a system, but you also have lots of agendas, externally and internally.
The outgoing NPA head previously said she used the wrong words to describe the issues that bedeviled the prosecuting authority. Now she's told Parliament that she received intelligence information that there was a concerted attempt to compromise members of the prosecuting authority.
But I immediately informed the Minister of Justice about this and had a meeting with her when I briefed her on what I had been told. I also, at some time later after that, when the President was available, met with him and briefed him about my concerns about this. And my understanding is that there was not a, and this is my understanding, I'm not sure how these agencies work, but that there wasn't a particular tasking to look into the NPA. But I asked the President, I said to him, it's important that we understand what is going on and that there should be a tasking by our intelligence services to properly look into this matter. And that was the situation. Of course, when I made these comments, there were prosecutors in the NPA who also became concerned about this. And I hasten to add that, Chair, the majority of the prosecutors in the NPA are hardworking, committed prosecutors, and our performance will attest to this.
This is not the only confidential information Batoy has received. Stay with us, because after the break, we'll look at what else she divulged and why she met the wrath of MPs. As a chief prosecutor in the country, what does Batoy make of the allegations that prosecutors are part of the problem in the system and that they assist in botching cases before the Republic's courts? Well, she's made a call. Mkhwanazi must provide evidence, and those on the wrong side of the law will face its full might.
It's been over 4 months since Mkhwanazi made startling allegations in which he named prosecutors as being part of the alleged rot in the criminal justice system. The question for Parliament is, what has their leader, Advocate Shamila Batoy, done in the face of such allegations?
What did the NDPP do in between this time? Because I would ask, because, for example, the Chief Justice did issue out looking for evidence and all those things, because judges, judiciary. So what were the steps taken by the leadership of the NPA in attending to the matter?
So, look, these processes are unfolding in the Nhlanhla Commission as well as in the ad hoc. Now, we've testified, the National Commissioner has testified. I discussed it with Advocate Johnson, and I will be writing to the National Commissioner to ask him to reveal that we want the names of those prosecutors that General Mkhwanazi alleges is involved in any kind of criminal activity, because this is something that we have to investigate.
However, Batoy revealed that the allegations were not the first of their kind.
I received information from the National Commissioner and General Khumalo about a particular member of the prosecuting authority who was involved in organized criminality. I am not going to mention the name of that prosecutor in this House. The matter is under investigation. I immediately, upon receiving that information, I made a formal referral of the matter to the IDAC to investigate the matter. And that's the one direct evidence, bit of evidence or information, I should say, because I did ask the National Commissioner and General Khumalo. I met with them and I said to them, please, we need more evidence so that we can look into this matter, because it's unacceptable and untenable that any member of the prosecuting authority is involved with organized criminality. That there should be a fair process, And I've said this to prosecutors. There must be a fair process, and if you're found to be compromised, you will be kicked out of the NPA.
But who is the prosecutor alleged to be aiding and abetting?
These things destroy people's lives. And as prosecutors, we have a lot of power to make these decisions that affect people's lives in a very real way. And I've always implored upon prosecutors to please take your responsibility seriously. The impact of our decisions impact people's lives. So we must make the right decisions and make sure we have the evidence when we make a decision to prosecute.
This response earned Batoy criticism from lawmakers.
She was suggesting we must just go home if she's going to proceed like that. Because we deal with names here. What are we dealing with? What are we dealing with here? We want to know who captured the criminal justice system. And if we can't be told names and we accept that, let's go home. Especially names that are out there. There is a prosecutor, I'm just forgetting the name of, is it Johannesburg or something, Pretoria, who's suspended by the president? Joburg, Chauke. What's difficult saying something like that? What's difficult saying something like that? If we're referring to Chauke, or if there is more, we need to know. There is nothing unprofessional about that, because if we're going to proceed like that, we're becoming toothless.
The exercise of Batoy's power as an organ of state renders her decisions as administrative action, and the fact-finding body was adamant that this warranted an explanation.
If you act in public office, any decision that is taken by, it's an administrative act, isn't it? And for sure you should be able to explain that decision, unless you were to say to us, like, you know, when we administered oath here, the law says you are expected to answer any question fully and satisfactorily, and failure to do so, you may be committing an offense. And if there was a law that prevents you to do that, maybe it will be advisable to you to say, I'm mindful of the oath that I've taken, but there is this law that prevents me. I mean, the suspension of a person or removal of a person from office is in public interest. I mean, the public wants to know why this person is no longer in office. How has it happened? Is this decision arbitrary or is it justified?
Chair, I said that the person is not suspended for these allegations. And if I mentioned anything more about it, it may become clear who the person is. And for that reason, I do not want to say anything more about it. Chair, I would think that the Constitution actually requires me to act fairly when we take decisions. And this, in my view, is being fair to someone who may or may not be implicated in organized criminality.
For some, the decision to remain mum goes against the principles of equality.
Where do we draw the line? When things are genuine or are not genuine, where do we draw the line? Because this committee sits here to probe these issues. The allegations which were made by General Mkhwanazi. Hence we are here. We are not casting aspersion to anyone. But we want the truth. But if it's an animal farm, names were mentioned here. No one ever complains about names being mentioned here.
The independence of the NPA was further called into question.
Advocate, there is in your annual report says there was 57.4 million in funding that was received from the federal government of the Republic of Germany. What was that for?
So that is primarily to deal with capacitating the NPA to fight corruption. And to say that, you know, it wasn't money that the NPA received, but we received services that helps us to capacitate the NPA.
Okay. And who conceptualized the project?
It was conceptualized in the NPA.
Okay.
Of course, with the government of Germany.
Okay. Did the NPA approach the Hans Siedel, is it Hans Siedel Foundation? Because this is the NGO that the funding was channeled through. Am I correct?
We worked with the government of Germany, and the government of Germany decided on the partner that will implement in South Africa.
Do you know why they chose the Hans Siedel Foundation?
I have no idea.
MPs were less than impressed at this revelation, fearing in cash or in kind relationships that could compromise the NPA. But as Batoy prepares to retire in January 2026, she says she has one last trick up her sleeve to start the process to get the Guptas back to South Africa.
From the information that I received from the ID, it will certainly be before I leave office. So, but I certainly hope it would be even before the end of this year. But it will be soon. We are working very hard on also ensuring that we have additional charges that will be added to the original extradition request. So it's the time that it's taking is that we're not just resubmitting the old request again. We have investigated some other very important cases involving other SOEs.
For now, Batoy's robes are still firmly in place. But when asked what is wrong with the system, it seemed she was suddenly gripped by fear, including by the growing assassination of prosecutors and a crime intelligence unit on its knees.
I really don't know where to start. Our crime is ravaging our country. And it seems like we are watching this movie in front of us in slow motion, and those of us in power that should be doing something about it are powerless to do anything about it. That the criminals are taking over our country, organized criminals. As the national director, the one thing that I do is authorize racketeering prosecutions. And the numbers of racketeering prosecutions don't give any confidence that we are, and the types as well, that we are dealing with the top level of organized criminality in this country.
Batoy told the ad hoc committee that she was not engaged in the work of KwaZulu-Natal's political killings task team and left that to the Director of Public Prosecutions in the province, calling it an operational issue. But one person who kept a close eye on the team's work is Professor Mary de Haas, who's been cited by Mchunu as having written to his office bemoaning the PKT team. Next week, we'll find out why and how she defends her credibility after Mkhwanazi picked holes in her body of work when she has her turn before Parliament's inquisitorial body. You'll want to stay tuned to Newzroom Afrika on channel 405. I'm Zoleka Qodashe, and thanks for watching.